It's August 9th, 1925. In the pitch black of the United Provinces, the number 8 down passenger train cuts through the night. Inside the guard's cabin sits a heavy iron safe holding the tax revenue of the British Empire. Before it reaches Lucknow, the train suddenly grinds to a halt near the village of Kakori. Armed men quickly overpower the guard and surround the cabin. Their target is the iron safe, but the safe is locked tight. The men strike it, try to pry it open, but the heavy iron won't yield. Minutes tick by, and with every passing second, the risk of armed British reinforcements arriving grows. The entire mission is on the brink of failure. A tall, broad-shouldered man pushes through the group, gripping a heavy hammer. He strikes the steel with enough force to finally break the lock. His name is Ashfaqullah Khan, and ironically, he was the only member of this group who had fiercely argued against robbing this train in the first place. Ashfaqullah believed the group wasn't strong enough yet to survive the wrath of the British government, but the leader of the operation, Ram Prasad Bismil, felt they had no other choice. Because of his unyielding loyalty to Bismil, Ashfaqullah cast aside his tactical doubts and physically took the lead when the mission stalled. To keep the passengers inside their compartments, the men fired German-made Mauser pistols into the air. They maintained strict discipline. They shouted warnings to the passengers, making it explicitly clear they were there only for government money, ensuring no deliberate harm came to the civilians on board. With 8,000 rupees in hand, these poets and nationalists had successfully executed a calculated armed strike against the crown. The heist at Kakori was their opening salvo in a war against the world's most powerful military empire. 3 years earlier, in 1922, Mahatma Gandhi abruptly suspended the non-cooperation movement. The national campaign of peaceful resistance was halted right as it seemed to be gaining real momentum. This document records the aftermath of that decision. It details how the sudden withdrawal left educated youths taken aback and drove these daredevils to search for new, more direct avenues of resistance. They realized that peaceful prayers and protests alone would not compel the colonial government to surrender its most valuable colony. Looking at the object section of this constitutional draft, the response is clear. These young men formed the Hindustan Republican Association. Their stated purpose was to establish a federal republic of the United States of India by means of an organized and armed revolution. But organizing an armed rebellion required massive funding and absolute trust. Before they could dismantle the colonial government, the members of the HRA first had to overcome a much older, deeply entrenched problem, the lethal religious divides fracturing their own society. Ram Prasad Bismil was a devout follower of the Arya Samaj, deeply rooted in Hindu reformism. Ashfaqullah Khan was a Pathan Muslim from a wealthy landlord family. Culturally and religiously, they came from opposite ends of the spectrum. When Ashfaqullah first sought out Bismil to join the revolutionary cause, Bismil kept his distance. In the 1920s, India's political atmosphere was tense, crowded, and volatile. Intense communal friction bred a deep suspicion between Hindus and Muslims. But Ashfaqullah refused to be turned away. He repeatedly approached Bismil, and eventually they found common ground in an unexpected place, writing Urdu poetry. Exchanging verses and spending hours in conversation slowly dismantled Bismil's inherited prejudices. Through their friendship, they solidified their understanding of colonial power dynamics. The British Empire maintained its grip on the subcontinent largely by ensuring that Hindus and Muslims remained deeply divided, expending their energy fighting one another instead of the occupying force. The absolute trust between them was cemented during a local communal riot. As tensions flared, Ashfaqullah drew his weapon and stood guard in front of a Hindu temple to protect it from an angry mob. He placed his commitment to humanity and his brother-in-arms above sectarian lines. Their bond mirrored the HRA's evolving ideology. In their 1925 manifesto, titled Krantikari, the group officially committed to a federal republic that sought to abolish all systems of exploitation, establishing a standard for a unified, secular resistance that transcended individual religious identity. The British response to the Kakori train robbery was swift and aggressive. Recognizing the severe threat posed by a united armed resistance, the colonial administration launched a massive, empire-wide manhunt to crush the HRA. Around 40 people were rounded up. Bismil was arrested within months in Shahjahanpur. Ashfaqullah managed to evade the police, traveling across the country and securing a job in an engineering company under an assumed name. But while planning to escape the country, he was betrayed by a childhood friend and handed over to the police. The captured revolutionaries were locked inside massive colonial prison blocks across the United Provinces. The thick brick walls were designed to isolate and break them, stripping away their morale. British intelligence officers engaged in intense psychological warfare. They repeatedly interrogated Ashfaqullah to exploit his religion. They attempted to convince him his Hindu comrades would establish a Hindu state, promising leniency if he turned state's evidence. He flatly refused. Inside their respective cells, the men fought back with the only weapon they had left, their bodies. They launched grueling hunger strikes, with some lasting over 40 days, demanding the British treat them as political prisoners rather than common criminals. The colonial courts ultimately passed down severe sentences, including 4 condemnations to the gallows. But while the imperial machine successfully caged their bodies, it entirely failed to fracture the ideological brotherhood that held them together. On the morning of December 19, 1927, the executions were carried out. Ram Prasad Bismil and Ashfaqullah Khan prepared to walk to the gallows, hundreds of miles apart in completely separate prison facilities. In Gorakhpur jail, Bismil stepped toward the execution chamber, peacefully chanting verses from the Bhagavad Gita. In Faizabad, Ashfaqullah faced his end with the Quran tied to his chest, reciting final prayers. Before the lever was pulled, Ashfaqullah kissed the noose. He declared to the officials present that his hands were clean of any murder, and that his true justice would be delivered by God. Their final act of resistance wasn't on the gallows, but in the letters they managed to smuggle out of prison in their final days. They didn't ask for revenge. They issued a desperate plea to the nation, begging their countrymen to prioritize Hindu-Muslim unity above all else. In his final message, Bismil begged the nation to make Hindu-Muslim unity their lasting memorial. He saw this as the only way to sustain freedom, a warning that continues to echo as contemporary social and political divisions mirror the very fractures the British once exploited to maintain control. The Kakori martyrs secured a permanent place in the history of the resistance, but their true legacy was a call for internal cohesion. Until that unity is realized, the vision they carry to the gallows remains unfulfilled.